Hi friends. To end our week learning all about frogs, I thought I would read to you a story about a character that we've seen before. We have met this character in many other books. His name is Froggy. So this is a fiction story. It's a fun story, and remember, a character in a fiction story usually has a problem that he has to solve, he or she has to solve before the story ends and he learns a lesson or she learns a lesson. There are usually other characters in the story. Those are the other people, or because it's pretend, they can be animals that the story is about. And also the setting. And remember, a setting is where the story takes place. So I'm going to be reading this story called Froggy's Sleepover. And after we read this story together, we'll talk about the characters, we'll talk about the setting, and we'll talk about the problem and how the characters solved their problem. Now, all of the Froggy stories are written by Jonathan London and illustrated by Frank Remkowitz. So they work together on all of these stories. And remember, a series of books is many books that have the same main character. So all of these books are about Froggy. Froggy's Sleepover. Froggy's Sleepover. It was Friday and school was out. So just like your Friday when you listen to this story, last day of school for the weekend, before the weekend. Froggy flapped home from the school bus, flap, 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 singing, hooray, hooray, it's Friday, and Friday I'm going to Max's for a sleepover. So he's feeling excited. That's great, said Froggy's mother, and she gave him a plate of chocolate fly cookies. This is your first sleepover. Are you nervous? Who, me? Of course not, said Froggy, and he hopped up and flapped to his room. Flap, flap, flap. Did you notice that he doesn't eat chocolate chip cookies? He eats chocolate fly cookies. He pulled a big sack from his closet. Slam. Squeezed in his pillow. Poof. Slapped in his pajamas. Puff. Shoved in a pair of underwear. Pum. And stuffed in his sleeping bag. Soof. There, he said, and flapped outside, dragging his sack behind him. Schloop. Froggy, called his mother. What? Did you forget your huggy? He forgot to say goodbye and hug his mom. Oops, said Froggy and flopped back inside. Flap, flap, flap. I found it, he yelled. It was in the cookie jar. Slam. Oh, so his huggy isn't a huggy that he doesn't hug his mom. That's what he calls his stuffed animal. Then out of the door he went, dragging his sack behind him. Schloop. Froggy, called his mother. What? Did you forget your toothbrush? Oops, said Froggy, and flopped back inside. Flap, flap, flap. I found it, yelled Froggy. It was in my toy chest. Bang. Don't forget to brush, said his mother. I know, said Froggy. Then off he went to Max's, dragging his sack behind him. Shoop. So now he's got his toothbrush, and he's got his sleeping bag, and his stuffed animal. And at Max's, he dumped everything out on the floor. Schlump. Rolled out his sleeping bag. Sloof. And fluffed up his pillow. Floof. Okay, said Froggy. I'm ready for bed. But Froggy, said Max, it's only 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock is very, very early. That's like right around when you get home from school. So they waited until after dinner, and then they crawled into their sleeping bags. Wait, said Froggy, jumping up. I forgot to brush my teeth. Don't be a baby, said Max. This is a sleepover. You don't have to brush. Uh-oh. Froggy crawled back into his bag. Wait, he said, jumping back up. I need my huggy to go to sleep. Sleep, said Max. Who's going to sleep? We can tell scary stories and have pillow fights all night long. Froggy slipped back into his bag, and Max told a story that made Froggy's skin crawl. So when somebody says your skin's crawling, it means you're nervous or scared. Now it's your turn, said Max. But there were weird screeching sounds and scary shapes hanging in the windows like ghosts. So those are shadows. I have a better idea, said Froggy. What? Said Max. Let's go to my house for a sleepover. When they got back to Froggy's, they tiptoed inside the dark. Quiet, quiet. Crash! Froggy bumped into a lamp and knocked it over the goldfish bowl. Splash! Froggy! Yelled his mother. What's all the ruckus? She flicked on the light. Oops! Cried Froggy, looking more red in the face than green. We decided to sleep here instead. So, do you think Froggy might be feeling maybe a little nervous? Oh, Froggy, said his mother, I thought that you wanted to sleep at Max's. I did, cried Froggy, but, I was hungry. And you make the best popcorn. Can you make me some, please? Okay, you little munchkins, said his mom. Pop, pop, pop. She made them some buttery popcorn, and then they went back to bed. Plump, plump, plump. Froggy and Max were having a wild pillow fight. Good night, pudding heads, cried Froggy's mom. I hope you go to sleep soon, groaned Froggy's dad. Me too, moaned Froggy's mom. Froggy's parents were snoring like horses when Froggy's mom heard a sound and her eyes popped open. She flicked on the light and Max was standing by the bed. I have a tummy ache, he said. I want to go home. So back they went to Max's, dragging their sacks behind them. Shloop. But there were still weird sounds and scary shadows there, so they went back to Froggy's. But Max wanted his own pillow, so then they went back to Max's. But Froggy wanted his pink lemonade, so back and forth they went. Shloop, shloop, shloop. Till at last they fell asleep at Max's house at 9 o'clock in the morning. So that is the end of the story. So in this story, we think about the characters. The characters were Froggy and Max. They were the main characters who the story was about. And then there were some other characters in there. I remember Froggy's mom and his dad. And Max's mom was in the story. She walked them back one time. And I think that was all the characters in the story. If I think about the setting of the story, that's where the story took place. The author had this story taking place sometimes at Froggy's house and sometimes at Max's house. So there was two different settings. Sometimes Froggy's at school in his other stories, but this one they were at his house and Max's house. And then if we think about the problem and how the characters solved the problem, I think the problem in this story was that Froggy was a little nervous to have his first sleepover. But Max was also nervous to have a sleepover. So they kind of both had a problem, and they solved it by going back and forth between each other's houses. But then they didn't get any sleep. And that's what they said they were going to do from the beginning. They said, we're going to stay up all night long, and that's what they ended up doing. So that is the story, Froggy's Sleepover, a fun fiction story about that frog that we have been learning about. So next week we will practice learning a little bit more about a different life cycle of an animal. We're going to learn about the life cycle of a caterpillar that has a metamorphosis or a big change and turns into a butterfly. So we'll learn about that next week. I hope you have a great weekend, boys and girls, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.